The heavy manila envelope landed on the kitchen table with a soft thud that echoed louder than it should have. Henry Carter, 71 years old, stood in the doorway of the house he had framed board by board starting in the sweltering Atlanta summer of 1976, staring at his son Brandon. The last mortgage payment check had cleared the bank that morning. 50 years of sweat, scraped knuckles, and careful budgeting, finally free and clear. And here was Brandon, 46, in his pressed button-down and expensive watch, sliding those eviction-style papers across the oak surface Henry had planed smooth himself. "Dad, we need to be realistic," Brandon said, his voice carrying that corporate confidence he'd honed at his tech firm downtown. The house smelled of fresh coffee and the faint pine from the cabinets Henry installed when Brandon was still in diapers. Sophia, Brandon's wife, hovered near the island, scrolling on her phone like this was just another meeting to check off. "Realistic?" Henry repeated slowly, picking up the documents. They outlined a 30-day notice to vacate for assisted senior living at a place called Evergreen Meadows. Brandon had already highlighted the monthly fee, nearly $7,000, and noted how he and Sophia could help subsidize it. "You're not getting any younger," Brandon continued. "The stairs, the yard maintenance, the property taxes on a place this size. It's a lot for someone living on retirement checks. We love you, but this house is too much. You've been a carpenter your whole life. Times have changed." Henry felt the words land like nails driven crooked. He looked around the kitchen where he'd raised 2 kids. The growth chart marks still faintly visible on the doorframe despite layers of paint. The window over the sink where his late wife Claire had watched their children play in the backyard. Claire had passed 4 years ago after a long battle with her heart condition. Her final months spent in the master bedroom Henry had expanded for her comfort. He didn't argue right away. Instead, he nodded. "I'll think about it." But as Brandon's sleek SUV backed down the long driveway Henry had paved with his own hands, the wheels turning in Henry's mind were anything but compliant. Still waters. As his father used to say, run deep. That evening, alone with his thoughts, Henry sat on the back porch swing he'd built in '82. The suburban Atlanta neighborhood hummed quietly, kids on bikes, distant lawnmowers. He remembered the lot purchase in '75 for what felt like a fortune then, $42,000. Friends thought he was crazy taking on the build himself while working full-time as a master carpenter. But he had measured twice, cut once, poured the foundation with care during weekends and evenings. Every beam, every wire run, every shingle had his touch. The house had sheltered birthday parties, late-night talks with Claire, homework battles, and 2 generations of laughter. Brandon saw an aging blue-collar man in flannel and work boots who drove a 10-year-old pickup and shopped at the hardware store for deals. He didn't see the man who had quietly invested every spare dollar since the early '80s. Mutual funds, index accounts, compound growth over decades. Henry had met with a financial advisor friend, Marcus, back in '81 when Brandon was a toddler. While others spent on flashy cars and vacations, Henry lived modestly, reinvested, and watched the numbers grow. Last year, after Claire's passing left a hole, he'd bought a waterfront condo in Hilton Head, South Carolina cash, 3 bedrooms overlooking the Atlantic, valued now at nearly $2 million. His portfolio sat at over $2 million liquid. The house? Recent comps put it at $2.6 million in this desirable Atlanta suburb. But Brandon assumed food stamps and Social Security scraps. He drove a leased luxury SUV with monthly payments that would make Henry wince, wore suits that cost more than Henry's tools, and spoke of downsizing like Henry was a burden cluttering his polished image. Sophia had joined the conversation earlier, her designer handbag resting on the table Henry had built from reclaimed barn wood. "Henry, Evergreen Meadows has activities. Medical support on site. It's perfect for someone your age managing alone. Her tone was sympathetic but firm. The way executives discuss restructuring. Henry sipped coffee from the mug Olivia had painted for him as a child. He managed the taxes, $22,000 a year, fine. Maintained the gutters last weekend himself. Safely on the ladder, he'd climbed for half a century. The cracks in the driveway? Sealed professionally. Paint peeling? Scheduled for next dry spell. They didn't see determination.
They saw decline.
They didn't ask about his finances. They decided he needed managing. After Brandon left, Henry made 3 calls. First to Marcus about preparing portfolio summaries. Second to Olivia, his daughter the ER doctor, about the house deed transfer. Third to his attorney, Elena Vargas, about the Hilton Head property and legal protections. The weight of 50 years pressed on him, but so did resolve. This wasn't just about a house. It was about legacy, respect, and the danger of assumptions that could fracture families. The next days blurred into quiet preparation. Henry walked the property, touching the trim work he'd perfected over weekends in the late 70s. Remembering Claire's excitement when the first coat of paint went on. She had chosen the soft blue-gray for the shutters, saying it reminded her of summer skies. Their children, Brandon and Olivia, had learned to ride bikes on the driveway. Skin knees bandaged at the kitchen table. Tommy, Brandon's 8-year-old, loved hearing stories of the build, asking questions about load-bearing walls. Little Emma, 5, preferred the rose garden Henry maintained in Claire's memory. Brandon called, twice more, pressing for a decision. Dad, the spot at Evergreen is time-sensitive. We've looked at your statements, Social Security, small pension. It's not sustainable here. Henry listened, heart heavy with the irony. He never volunteered the truth yet. Timing mattered. Olivia arrived that Saturday morning straight from a night shift. Scrubs rumpled. Concern etched on her face. Over pancakes at the same kitchen island, Henry explained the power of attorney concerns Brandon had hinted at. The veiled threats of declaring incompetence if Henry fell or had an episode alone. Olivia's eyes widened. He said that?
Dad.
That's not protection. That's control. She hugged him tightly. When Henry asked how she'd feel about the house coming to her now, her voice softened. I love this place. The kids do too. But only if you're sure. You're not.
Unwell?
Henry reassured her with a competency evaluation already scheduled. Marcus arrived mid-morning for coffee. The advisor, now nearing retirement himself, reviewed the accounts discreetly. Portfolio's strong.
Henry.
Dividends cover expenses comfortably. Hilton Head appreciates nicely. Ready to show your cards? Henry nodded. It's time my son learns assumptions of costs. Elena drew up the quitclaim deed papers, warning of the permanence and suggesting a family meeting to air grievances. Henry agreed but planned the reveal carefully. He accepted Brandon's invitation to dinner with Sophia's parents, wealthy developers from Buckhead, seeing it as the perfect stage. Thursday night arrived rainy and tense. Henry drove his reliable pickup to their modern glass home in an exclusive neighborhood. Sophia's parents, Robert and Elaine, exuded polished success. Robert shook hands firmly. Brandon tells us you're retired from construction. Honorable work. The conversation circled Henry like he was quaint background noise. Luxury developments. Charity galas. Tech expansions. Brandon steered toward senior living. Dad's place is beautiful, but impractical now. We've secured a spot at Evergreen. Robert nodded approvingly. Smart. My mother delayed too long. Bad fall. Sophia added details on amenities. Henry set down his fork. Actually, I'm quite capable. My house appraises at $2.6 million. Comparable sales confirm it. Silence fell. Robert blinked. How do you track that? Same way anyone does. Public records. Attention to detail. Brandon looked uneasy. The evening ended awkwardly. Seeds of doubt planted. Back home, Henry sat by the fireplace, mantel he'd carved from walnut. Memories flooded, teaching Brandon to hammer nails safely. Late talks with Claire about college funds they secretly built through investments. Brandon had assumed the modest lifestyle meant poverty. He never asked about the mutual fund started in '79, the disciplined monthly contributions that compounded into security. The following morning, Brandon called irritated. Dad. About the house value at dinner. Henry suggested meeting at an upscale restaurant Henry chose, Il Forno downtown, where Brandon planned client talks. Bring your advisor if needed, Henry said calmly. The restaurant hummed with Atlanta's professional crowd. Brandon had reserved a large table for clients, investors from venture firms, plus his financial advisor Charles, different from Henry's Marcus. Sophia sat poised. Henry arrived in clean jeans and flannel, comfortable in his skin. Introductions framed Henry as the handy retired dad needing support. Conversation flowed on markets and deals. Henry ate quietly, listening. Tension built as Brandon pushed assisted living talk again. Then Marcus appeared as arranged, leather portfolio in hand. Henry, sorry for the traffic from the office. Shall we review the accounts here? The table froze. Brandon paled. Marcus proceeded professionally. Fidelity balance at $2.1 million. Hilton Head waterfront condo valued at $1.9 million with strong appreciation. Strong dividend income. Gasps rippled. One client asked, "You built this on a carpenter's salary?" Henry explained, living modestly. Consistent investing since the '70s. Buying the condo during a market dip. Compound interest and time do the work. Brandon stammered.
Dad.
Why didn't you say? Henry met his eyes. You never asked. You assumed the work boots meant broke and helpless. You threatened legal action to force me out. Clients exchanged glances. Judgment shifting. The narrative of the struggling father crumbled. Henry stood. The house transfers to Olivia tomorrow. She values its history. He left money for his meal and walked out, the weight lifting slightly. Behind him, questions arose about Brandon's judgment. The next morning, Elena and Olivia arrived. At the kitchen table where the papers first appeared, they signed the quitclaim. Ownership passed. Henry felt peace mixed with sorrow. Take care of it.
Live.
Teach the kids the stories. Brandon arrived soon after, shocked at the documents. You can't just give it away. But it was done.
Filed.
You wanted me out in 30 days. I'm moving to Hilton Head. You get what you assumed. Arguments flared. Sophia accused manipulation. Olivia defended. Brandon paced. Face flushed. We were trying to help. Henry countered quietly. You were trying to control. There's a difference. You saw a burden, not a man who built his life carefully. They left defeated. Henry packed essentials for Hilton Head, heart heavy but resolved. The house would stay in family with appreciation, not treated as liability. Fallout hit fast. Olivia called. Brandon threatened contesting the deed, claiming coercion and incompetence. Henry smiled grimly, his recent full geriatric psych eval, scored perfectly, was filed preemptively. Elena handled notifications. Marcus reported Brandon's office inquiries about accounts, met with confidentiality refusals and upset threats. Professional ripples began. One investor pulled interest after the restaurant scene, questioning Brandon's family oversight and decision-making. Victoria, no. Sophia called privately. Brandon's not sleeping. Lost a major contract. His image took a hit. Henry replied evenly. Consequences of assumptions. He never asked about my reality. Grandkids visited. Tommy asked why Daddy was mad. Henry explained gently, "Adults sometimes judge books by covers. Your grandpa looks simple, but there's more underneath. Respect comes from understanding, not assuming." Saturday. Brandon appeared alone on the porch Henry built decades ago. Vulnerable now. "Dad, I messed up badly. I saw the flannel and truck and decided you needed saving. Lost the deal. Reputation questioned. Can we fix us?" Henry looked at his son. "It starts with seeing me as your father, not a project. Ask questions next time. Listen deeper." Brandon nodded. "I'd like to try." "Love you." Small steps. Henry moved to Hilton Head. Mornings brought ocean air. Walks clearing yesterday's burdens. Olivia called often about settling in. Minor repairs she handled with his phone guidance. Tommy wanted to learn carpentry. Weeks later, Henry volunteered with Habitat for Humanity near Hilton Head. Building for a young teacher family echoed his own start. Advice flowed. A house shelters, but a home builds intention and respect. Portfolio review showed growth. Henry established education trusts for grandkids and a scholarship for trade skills, carpentry. Electrical, honoring honest work. Saturday. Tommy helped on a simple project at Olivia's. Measure twice. Cut once. Buddy. Respect the tools, the materials, the effort. Tommy soaked it in, eyes wide. "When I grow up, I want to build like you, Grandpa." Henry smiled. Legacies aren't inherited by assumption but earned through relationship, patience, and seeing beyond surfaces. A text from Brandon. Interest in Habitat projects. Henry replied positively. Call this weekend. Reconciliation in small, respectful steps.
Sitting on his deck.
Waves crashing. Henry reflected. The house stood strong with Olivia. Memories preserved. Brandon learned painfully that assumptions cost relationships and opportunities. What hidden strengths do we overlook in those we love? What legacies do we risk erasing with quick judgments? The ocean whispered answers in its endless rhythm. Look deeper. Ask more. Value the builders among us.